Karen Horney might be one of the most underrated psychoanalysts to study for beginners. She is down to earth, she's very low in jargon, she offers a beautiful introduction to understanding not just psychodynamic thinking, but personality styles in particular, which I'm personally a huge fan of. And I think if you start learning about her life, you will find that she is incredibly fascinating and a badass woman of her time. So what I want to talk to you about today are 3 books that I recommend for anyone who wants to get started understanding Karen Horney so that you get the most important bits of her theory and not waste your time. And today's video is brought to you by me. If we haven't met yet, my name is Alina, I'm a German psychoanalyst in training, and I have created a workshop about Karen Horney. In it, I walk you through the most important things you need to know about Karen Horney and her theory, covering all her major concepts from basic anxiety to neurotic needs and trends, the idealized self, search for glory, tyranny of the shoulds, neurotic claims, all in a very beginner-friendly and concise fashion because I don't want to waste your time. So if that is interesting to you, feel free to check out how you can gain access to this workshop in the description box below. The first book I recommend is not even written by Karen Horney. You might have heard about this before on this channel, but whenever I start digging into a new psychodynamic thinker, I like to start with their biography, if there is a good one available. And for Karen Horney, there are actually 3 biographies. There is Karen Horney, Gentle Rebel of Psychoanalysis by Rubens, Susan Quinn's A Mind of Her Own, The Life of Karen Horney, and Karen Horney, Psychoanalyst Search for Self-Understanding by Bernard Paris. The reason that I really like to start with a biography is because it is so helpful to understand a theorist approach and ideas if you have a solid understanding of where they come from. I think developing a psychodynamic theory is such a personal endeavor, and I think Karen Horney would agree. She said to her editor when she was publishing one of her books, "All we can say about anything and all that is worth saying is after all something personal versus eternal truths." And I got this sentence from Karen Horney's biography that was written by Susan Quinn. This is the only biography I have read. I have not read the 2 others, so I can't judge them, but I really enjoyed Susan Quinn's biography. I think Susan Quinn does a fantastic job of contextualizing Karen Horney in the time that she was living as a female. Karen Horney was one of the first females in Germany to study medicine at university. Incredibly smart, incredibly introspective, a very moving and fascinating life. Once you read her biography, her theory just makes so much more sense. And if you want to dig deeper and not just read her biography, there is also her adolescent diaries that are published. Karen Horney wrote a diary from, I think, the time that she was 14 until her early 20s. It's just absolutely incredible that we have access to the published diaries of a psychoanalyst from her adolescence to her early adult years. I read her adolescent diary and I thought the first couple of years where she was very young, like a 14-year-old girl, it wasn't that interesting to me. But then later on, when she was in her early 20s, it gets very interesting and you get a very intimate, fascinating look into the mind of Karen Horney. Also, this has not been confirmed by Karen Horney herself, but it is said that in Self-Analysis, there's a case study which is called Claire. It's titled Morbid Dependency, and it is said by Susan Quinn in the biography that this is presumably autobiographical. And if you read her biography and the adolescent diaries of Karen Horney, it's not difficult to imagine how she was someone who struggled with a need for intimacy, a morbid dependency on man, infidelity on her part, always struggling, wanting to be close to man, and at the same time rebelling against this dependency. So I would always suggest people to start with her biography. If you're very fascinated by this, feel free to jump into the adolescent diaries of hers that are published. And also you can read the study of Claire in her book Self-Analysis. The next book of hers that I would suggest people read is very underrated. I don't see people talking about it at all. I didn't know that it existed for a long time, and I think it's such a shame. It is her book, New Ways in Psychoanalysis. It was published in 1939, so it's one of her earlier works. People usually flock to her more mature theory and other published books such as Self-Analysis maybe, but I think this one really is a hidden gem, and I wish every theorist would have written their own version of this book. Because in this book, the fundamental principle is that Karen Horney takes every one of Freud's most famous concepts, ranging from the Oedipus complex, narcissism, transference, repetition compulsion, death drive. She takes all those concepts, she defines what she thinks he means by that, and then she gives her own take. Basically, she responds to Freud's psychoanalysis and positions her own theory in it. And I think this is the best book to really understand the fundamental principle behind her own ideas. It's what I cover in the workshop in the very first lesson, where it's all about an introduction, understanding the fundamental principle, because I think once you get this fundamental principle behind her core ideas, it's so much easier to then later on understand her more complex ideas on top of that solid foundation. It's also just good to get, a short refresher on all the genius ideas that Freud had, and getting very down-to-earth definitions from Horney, which are not always easy to find. So this is a big recommendation if you want to understand Karen Horney's ideas and you want to get a good grip on the foundations of her psychology, and you don't want to buy my workshop. Please read New Ways in Psychoanalysis to really get what her theory is about. So starting with a biography might not be intuitive for everyone, and maybe also New Ways in Psychoanalysis is something that's quite new for you. And now the last book I would recommend, the third book that you should read if you want to understand Karen Horney and you're wondering how to read her, it is probably the most obvious choice, but I can't help it. It is her most mature theory, namely Neurosis and Human Growth. This is the very last book she published. It's from 1950. She was working on another book about technique. Unfortunately, that didn't get finished. I have read quite a few accounts where people who were supervised by her said that she was one of the best supervisors they had. So I'm very excited to see what I can gather on her papers of technique and maybe share that with you as well. But when it comes to theory, her personality theory, Neurosis and Human Growth, with the concepts of the idealized self, search for glory, neurotic claims, tyranny of the shoulds, most importantly, self-alienation, all of that is in this book. So I can really recommend it. The font is quite small, and it's not a short book by any stretch of the imagination, almost 400 pages. So this takes quite a bit to read. It has a lot of descriptions, which is, on the one hand, one of the things that I really like about Karen Horney, because she really gives you a lot of descriptions that make it easy to feel yourself into psychodynamic thinking. But every now and then, those descriptions are a bit much, at least for me personally. But if you want to get a glimpse into her mature theory with all her major concepts, this, I think, will be the book that you should read at the very last. And then with the biography, you get an idea of who she was. With New Ways in Psychoanalysis, you learn how to position her ideas in comparison with Freud, learn her fundamental principle behind her psychology. And then if you want to add a third book to the list, I highly recommend Neurosis and Human Growth to get a very good overview of her mature theory. And if I were to read Karen Horney again, if I had to start all over, this is what I would read of hers to get a good overview and not waste my time on other books that might not be as rich. If you would like me to walk you through her theories and guide you through the jungle of her concepts, how they developed, her most important contributions, feel free to purchase the workshop. The link will be in the description box. And otherwise, I hope you can head to your local library and get your hands on these books if you are on a budget and you would like to do it on your own. I hope you will enjoy her theory. I think it's very beginner friendly. It's a lot of fun, and hopefully soon I will make a video walking you through all the books she's ever written so that you can get a good idea of what I think about her other books, such as Feminine Psychology, Self-Analysis, Neurotic Personality of Our Time, Our Inner Conflicts. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So thank you so much for your attention. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you next time. Bye bye.